Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome again. This is the Stories of Gumption podcast coming to you with another episode. Stories of Gumption. What are we talking about here? Well, we're having conversations with entrepreneurs, creative thinkers, and in my opinion, just really, really impressive people. Certainly adding to the list of impressive guests today on this episode. But first, got to thank our sponsors. They're a key part to the growing success of this podcast. We keep growing steadily, organically. Couldn't do it without the sponsors. Thank you so much. Our first sponsor, right out of the gate, Adirondack Mindfulness from Dr. Sharon Thoreau. First and foremost, I want to tell you she's bringing an MBSR course to our region. She's going to have it at Valcour Brewing Company on Saturdays for couple hours, starting in mid-November all the way up until the first weekend in January. MBSR, what does that stand for? Mindfulness-based stress reduction. It's kind of the cream of the crop. This is the big time. This is a great opportunity to really improve your self-awareness, your mindfulness, on a day-to-day basis. I am going to take the course, so how about that kind of plug? Join me and consider attending and participating in this course, Adirondack Mindfulness, especially when it starts getting colder. There's a little bit less to do on the weekends in the North Country. This is a great opportunity. Check it out. You can learn more about the courses that are available, whether it be private sessions, the MBSR course coming to Valcour Brewing, or just other great information that they have on the website, www.adirondackmindfulness, all one word, www.adirondackmindfulness.com. Check them out. Thank you, Dr. Sharon Thoreau, for the sponsorship of this podcast. Sponsor number 2. They've been here for a little while. You've heard of them. Kavanaugh Realty. They are a local independent real estate company helping their neighbors buy and sell their homes. Doing a great job at that, too. I've said it before if you heard in any of the other podcasts. Galen Trombley, one of the leaders at that company, helped me and my wife buy our first home. We are totally blessed to have amazing brokers and real estate agents throughout this region. There's a ton of them. I'm friends with a ton of them. And I can't thank Galen and Kavanaugh Realty for our personal experience with him just busting his behind to help us. Busting his ass to help us. I can't thank Galen Trombley enough for his effort when we were buying our home. We were first-time home buyers, had no idea what the process was going to be like or what to expect. Certainly would go into it a lot more educated now, but when you're a first-time home buyer, that's scary. Having somebody by your side is critical. Kavanaugh Realty did a great job for us. #Local Matters. Sponsor number 3. They are the OG sponsor, Open Gate Farmstead. Live like someone left the gate open. It's a new tagline that they have at the top of their YouTube page. Check them out. They are on YouTube. They are on Facebook. They are on Instagram. Open Gate Farmstead. Man, if you're not checking out and subscribing to their YouTube page, you're missing out. Because whether you want to buy food or produce products from them now or in the future, that's one thing. But just support them by throwing a couple likes around on their YouTube page or their social media, or subscribe, and they'll be so appreciative of that. They got a growing following, as they should. They're doing a lot with the farm to table movement, and we're super proud to have them in our region doing the work that they're doing to bring fresh food and produce to the area. So thank you, Open Gate Farmstead, for your support of the podcast and also for what you're doing. You guys are kicking butt. Thank you. Today, we are with a legend and a big mentor of mine, and I wouldn't be where I am without him. He may deny that, but it's Mr. John Bernardi, the CEO of the United Way of the Adirondack Region. We talk gumption, what it means to him, what it probably means to a lot of individuals across our region, going through their own challenges on a regular basis, a lot of the projects and initiatives that the United Way is taking to help the citizens of our community. And we learn a little tidbit about John's background. It's a great episode, so enjoy. Here it is, 25 Stories of Gumption Podcast. Gumption, defined as initiative, aggressiveness, resourcefulness, courage, spunk, guts, common sense, and shrewdness. Welcome to the podcast. This is Stories of Gumption with your host, Ryan Lee. Welcome to the podcast, everybody. Today's guest is Mr. John Bernardi, very good friend of mine. He's the CEO of the United Way of the Adirondack Region. He's a Rotarian. He's a family man, avid outdoorsman, loves skiing, fly fishing, boating, does incredible work for this community. Welcome to the podcast, John Bernardi.
Thanks, Ryan. It's great to be with you today, and I appreciate this opportunity. Absolutely.
I have to say, I've been looking forward to this one for a very long time.
Wow, thank you.
Because I was put in a very unique position at a young age. I was not ready to be the district executive of the Boy Scouts in our area, but it made me grow up real fast. And I would say a big piece of that was a lot of the mentors that I had along the way, and I can't look back on those days, especially from a fundraising perspective, without thinking of all the stuff you and I did together.
Well, you may have felt that you weren't prepared for that job, but it didn't show. And you did an outstanding job there. You were always great to work with. You were able to garner respect and admiration from all of your associates in a very short period of time. So I was pleased to be a mentor, if you consider me a mentor, but at the same time, I got a lot out of working with you because you were right on the money all the time.
Well, I appreciate that. I think the biggest lesson that I gained, and this is a great example of why you're a mentor, still are, I would say, but we were struggling with one of our major fundraisers, and you agreed to be the MC. And we basically took the whole format, dumped it upside down out of the box, and let everything fall out, and then reassembled everything. And we irritated some people, so the powers that be. And it wasn't a easy transition, but we basically went from a model of you kind of got to pay to play. You got to be able to throw some bucks down to be able to participate in this fundraiser. And we made it so much more affordable, and we doubled the attendance, and we made the same amount, but it was that much more presence, and then other things. It was just a great learning moment for me.
It was, I think, for all of us, and that event continues to be really great, and you left that legacy. So you did a lot of great things when you were in that position, but that's certainly one of the prime examples of what you left behind in your years of work there, and that event needed to be improved, and you were the driving force, and it continues to be a great event. And by the way, I still MC that event.
You told me.
Oh, yeah.
You said, I will do this for 1 year.
Yeah,
Isn't
right.
that like the whole thing with the Boy Scouts?
Yeah, and then Jeff Chauvin comes along, and that's another guy I really like and admire, so I don't want to say no to him.
Yeah, I can't say no. It's interesting. Nobody says no to John, but now John can't say no to the Boy Scouts.
Yeah, I don't know how that works, but
that's
it seems
fantastic.
to be the case.
Another thing that I will always thank you for is getting me involved in Rotary. You were my sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of people know that now, I don't think, because it's been a little while. I think it was like 2012 maybe when I started.
Right.
But you got me involved in Rotary.
Well, that was a great pleasure of mine, too, to sponsor you for Rotary, and you're a great Rotarian. What you've done with the volunteer corps of people to provide community service, in organizing the Rotarians in such a way that they can really emphasize their service to the community, and you've been the driving force behind that. So, yeah, I'm proud to sponsor you in the club, but you've taken your membership to a wonderful high level, and so you should be really proud of that.
Thank you. Well, I learn after the best, I suppose. Tell me and tell the listeners a little bit about where John Bernardi came from.
Well,
Where'd you grow up? What'd you do for fun?
Yeah. Fantastic. I grew up in central New York, near Utica, New York, New Hartford, actually.
My cousin grew up there.
No kidding. Right in the middle of the state, just outside of Utica. And my family roots are in Utica. We have an Italian-American background. Utica at one time was a bastion of Italian-American. Still is, but a little less so than back in the heyday. But I grew up there, and the Bernardi family was hailed from there. And again, my grandparents were Italian immigrants, and I grew up with a strong Italian-American heritage. And I went to New Hartford High School, played hockey and skied a lot when I was a kid, and always have had a great passion for the Adirondacks. Even from the time I can remember, the earliest time I can remember, I just had this thing for the Adirondacks. And so I spent a lot of time in the Old Forge Inlet area as a kid. But when it came to choosing a college, Paul Smith's College was a clear choice for me, College of the Adirondacks. And I went there and I studied ecology and environmental technology at Paul Smith's with the hopes of becoming a forest ranger. That was my goal, and that was my vision for myself, and loved my time at Paul Smith's, and did pursue for a short time becoming a forest ranger or working in the forestry industry, but kind of fell into the human service field sort of by accident after I graduated Paul Smith's, and I got into the helping profession, and I was actually a shop teacher at 21 years old.
No way.
In a school for adolescents with emotional issues and emotional problems.
Wow.
And I had a knack for this human service work and a passion for it, and it just grew. And I relocated permanently to the Adirondacks. Was in Saranac Lake and Lake Placid for many years back in the late 80s, and worked for Camelot Boys Home in Lake Placid.
Oh, nice.
Then later became the Head Start director in Essex County, and then later the CEO at Adirondack Community Action Programs, and then ultimately landed here as the CEO, United Way of the Adirondack Region. That's a abbreviated run down my career path, but the point being the human service field and the nonprofit management work was something that I had not planned when I was a kid, but fell into it and really learned to love it and found it to be really rewarding. And I just enjoy helping people and being part of community growth and well-being. And so it's been a wonderful and interesting journey.
Yeah. Wow. So yeah, I think that's the beauty of human service in general. It sounds like most people I've talked to fall into it, but then the passion for it is just so great that they can't leave it, and they're super excited about it. And arguably, I even had that with the Boy Scouts, which is why I still volunteer today. But tell me a little bit more about, was there a moment where you knew this is the career that you're destined for? You had a experience in the job early on, or maybe when you're at ACAP, Adirondack Community Action, or maybe something here, the United Way?
Well, I think, no, it was probably early on when I realized that I was good at this, and I was able to connect with people on a level that was useful and meaningful. And so I don't think there was any actual moment. I think it was more of a gradual experience I had along the way where I realized connecting with people and working with people was something that I was passionate about and probably decent at.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say there was a particular moment. It was more of a growth on my part in understanding that this work was really important. And I knew right away I was not going to get rich doing this work. And we've all been there. And we've seen our friends do other things and people we know do other things and make their riches doing other things. And I knew all along that I wasn't going to become a millionaire doing this kind of work. But what I learned along the way was there's a lot more to life than the size of your bank account. And when I see some people I know who do have accumulated wealth, what they missed out on along the way was some of the things that I appreciate, and it's the quality of life. And the family life. I don't think I ever missed anything that my kids were doing when they grew up, were growing up. One of them still is senior in high school. The other two are grown. But, I never missed anything. Family always came first, and then everything else was also important, but was second to the family obligations. And if you're in certain careers, you don't always have the ability to put your family first. And so what a blessing. I've been able to help a lot of people in my work and still do that and appreciate it every day. But at the same time, I've been able to maintain a quality of life that is really important to me, and especially being a family man, which I'm proud of.
That's fantastic. Well, it is the Stories of Gumption podcast. So maybe I'll ask this question. What does gumption mean to John Bernardi?
Well, I think gumption means a lot of things, but the thing that sticks out for me is the ability that people have to see their dreams or visions come to fruition, even though there are many obstacles and challenges along the way. And when I think of gumption, I don't think of necessarily my own gumption. I instead draw energy from seeing other people portray their gumption in such a way that's inspirational. For example, we've launched here at United Way a project called the ALICE Project, and ALICE is an acronym. It stands for Asset Limited Income Constrained Employed. It's what we used to call the working poor.
Yeah.
And what we've seen is, or what we know through our research, is that better than half of the households in our region, 54% of the households in our region, live below what we call the ALICE threshold, which is a financial threshold to be completely independent from assistance. So half the families in our region live below the ALICE threshold, but they also live above the federal poverty limit, which is extremely low. I think it's $26,000 for a family of 4 is what the federal poverty limit is. So that's extraordinarily low. No family of 4 can live independently on $26,000 per year. It's impossible. So we have this tens of thousands of people in this group in our region that live in the gap between the federal poverty limit and the ALICE threshold.
Throughout Clinton, Franklin, Essex County?
Correct. And the gumption these folks have to endure and portray every day is significant. For example, you and I might take for granted a flat tire or a leaky roof or a broken furnace or needing brakes on our vehicle. These, for many people, these things are inconveniences and nuisances. If I had a flat tire today, it would be a nuisance. But for me, it's not going to cause me to potentially lose my job. It's not going to cause me to make a decision, to have to make a decision around putting food on the table or getting my medication or fixing that tire. And what we've seen is for many, many families in our region, they are right on the edge of that financial cliff every day. And something like a flat tire or a leaky roof could create a chain reaction that could create a situation where people have to make life-changing decisions. Yeah. And I see the gumption that people portray on a daily basis. They're working 2 or 3 jobs to make ends meet and keep their families well. And that's gumption.
Yeah.
The gumption I have to come up with on a daily basis is pales in comparison to what some people are facing. So, yeah, do I have gumption? Yeah, and do I portray it sometimes? And yeah, absolutely. But again, it's the real problems that people are facing and being able to overcome that, to me, are great examples of gumption.
It's crazy how many people that affects. Makes me question too. I mean, I don't have children, but even just a young professional like myself at one time, or just trying to get a start, maybe debt from student loans or something like that, and get your first job. And there was definitely a period of time in my life where if I got a flat tire, I was in trouble. It's like, holy smokes! Like, granted, I had the privilege of calling up mom and dad if things got real bad. Not everybody has that even, but that certainly resonates with me that there's that many people who fit into the Alice category. What kind of things is the United Way doing to try and help with that?
Well, many things. One of the things that is somewhat unique around the Alice Project is raising awareness among employers regarding the challenges that their employees are facing. And we're trying to change that paradigm, if you will. In the old model, in the old days, the employees were expected to toe the line and be model employees all the time. And if life got in their way, then they were discarded often. And what we're encouraging employers to do is see the world through a different lens, and understand that you have employees that you may be paying a decent wage to. And decent wages, $15, $17, $20 an hour. We're lucky in this region. We have a fair amount of manufacturing jobs that do pay decent wages.
Yeah.
In that range that I just mentioned. But at the same time, people who are making, again, that decent money are still facing this financial cliff on a daily basis. So we're asking employers to be mindful of that, to be sensitive to that, and to see their employees in a holistic way, and to help establish a work environment that will allow people to overcome these obstacles. And we've had some great success in that area. And there are some companies, by the way, right here in our region that are models for this kind of thing. I think of the Northeast Group, what Mike Carpenter's doing with his, and Betsy, what they're doing with their employees. And we hear from them on a regular basis because they have employees who are needing help, and the company wants to help them and support them. Mold Right Plastics doing some great work around Alice and understanding what their employees are facing. And it's just a couple examples. There's numerous other companies that have shifted their thinking and their management of their workforce to be more supportive and to be more sensitive of what people are facing. It ultimately helps the individuals and the families that are employed by that company, but it also helps that company because it reduces turnover and creates very loyal and dedicated employees who feel supported by their employer.
That's important.
Very important. So that's one thing. We've launched a number of initiatives, some child care initiatives, because that's a huge issue.
Child care must be a huge piece of that. I hear about even friends of mine who they're right in the mix of that. They're going, holy smokes, right. The cost of child care for a month is the same or more, or maybe just a little less than what I'm making in my job. And
exactly.
And it's very unfair for someone to have to actually think about putting their own career on hold just because they can't afford childcare.
Yeah, childcare, affordable childcare is an ongoing challenge for families. Transportation is another major issue, and we've launched some initiatives there. Wheels to Work is a pilot program we launched about a year ago, where we're working to mobilize resources across the region to assist people with their transportation issues regarding work. And we live in an automobile region.
Yes.
It's a rural region we live in. Mass transit is not something that is realistic, and it's limited. It's important. The public transportation we do have is important, but it's somewhat limited, and it doesn't meet the needs of our rural nature. So we live in an automobile world here in the Adirondack region, and people need cars to get around. Busing and trains and other vehicles and things of that nature they're good and they're important, but they don't necessarily meet our need because of the rural nature. So the transportation issue is something we're working on as well.
What about housing? I'd be curious okay.
Yeah, I was just about to say,
I can see the light bulb popping up. Yep. Like,
affordable housing. Those are the big three: childcare, transportation, affordable housing. Those are the big three that we hear the most about from people who are struggling. And affordable housing is again one of those challenges that is huge in a rural region like ours. And there's some really good models that we've been a part of. Plattsburgh Housing's a great organization. They do a great job, and they're able to provide housing for people who might not be able to find it otherwise.
Mark Hamilton's doing a great job. Yeah, he was on the podcast.
That's right.
He was.
Mark's a great guy. He's very bright, very forward-thinking. So that we've seen PHA do some unique things, and they're working on some really interesting models. Mark's on our Alice steering committee, so we've been working together on a number of initiatives, and he's got a few things that are really unique and creative that he's working on, and others as well. BHSN is in the process of creating an affordable housing complex, and already has one, or more than one, and is working on another. ETC Housing does a great job, and they're meeting an important need that's out there. And then most recently is MHAB, which is a program over at the old dormitories for Clinton Community College. And it's transitional housing for people who are struggling with mental health or substance abuse issues. And that's a really important program, because that transition between being homeless or really down and out, and then getting back on your feet and having your own place, the transition between those two extremes is a very difficult challenge to navigate. So MHAB helps with that temporary transitional housing. And that, the examples I just gave you are the greater Plattsburgh area, but throughout the region there's examples of housing agencies, Saranac Lake and Malone and Tupper Lake, to name a few, that are doing similar work and providing that. But the need is still greater than the resources we have, and what people are finding is that affordable housing is very difficult to get in our region.
You know, a couple things are popping through my head here, but one that we haven't really talked about, but I would assume is part of this in some way. Thinking of Hannah Provost, she's been a campaign chair for United Way. Phenomenal person. Talk about another just excellent mentor of mine, a peer mentor. But she talked a lot on her episode of the podcast about foster care. I would assume that is intertwined into this big time.
Oh, it is. We have launched an initiative a couple of years now. We've been doing this to raise awareness across the region for the urgent need for foster care. It's largely been exacerbated by the heroin and opioid epidemic that we have in this region, but it's not solely due to that, but it's been exacerbated by that. And we've seen foster care, the need for foster care increase by over 100% in certain areas, like Franklin County, for example, where here's an interesting tidbit of information for you. The number of children in foster care in Franklin County, New York, which, by the way, is a population of 50,000 people, Franklin County. The number of children they have in foster care is equal to the number of children in foster care in Suffolk County, New York. The population in Suffolk County, New York is 1.2 million. So you think about that county with 1.2 million having a certain number of children in foster care, equivalent to the number of children in Franklin County needing foster care with a population of 50,000.
Wow.
So that puts it into perspective. And what we found was that the resources we have for foster care are not adequate to meet the need. So the county's departments of social services, which, by the way, we're blessed with having three great departments, Clinton, Essex, and Franklin, outstanding compared to some other counties in the state. Their resources for placing children who need foster care are inadequate. We don't have enough foster homes in the region. So what they're having to do is often send children out of the region for foster care. That comes at a great cost on many levels. Not only the financial cost and the burden to the counties and the taxpayers, but more importantly, the emotional cost that has on children and families, having to leave their schools, having to leave their communities, their friends, to be placed in foster care in some faraway place. And so we've been helping the counties raise this awareness in the hopes that we're able to recruit additional foster homes in the region. And we've made some progress there, but it's an ongoing need. Another thing related to that, which is pretty interesting, is we've launched a pilot program with Spark, ECHO, which is the Essex County Heroin and Opioid Task Force, and the Franklin County Prevention Task Force. Our United Way has launched a pilot program along with the county departments of social services to engage the recovery community. So the thought there is if people are in recovery and having some success with sobriety and wellness, and they've experienced that success, and along the way somebody was taking care of their children while they got better.
Mm-hmm.
The thought behind this is now that these folks have had that success and are on their feet and doing better, they might be compelled to help people who are just starting that journey of recovery. And it might include taking care of their kids while they're getting treatment and getting well. So we've begun to recruit foster parents or respite workers as well. You don't have to do foster care full blown. Sometimes they need respite. So it's people who are willing to take care of other people's children on a short-term basis.
A weekend or
or even a day sometimes for respite. And we're compelling the recovery community to answer the call. So again, if you've had success and you got help when you needed it, other people are just starting that process, and would you be willing to step up and help them? And what we've seen is people do that. You know, one of the greatest assets, Ryan, we have in this region, it's not necessarily the natural beauty, although that's wonderful.
Yeah.
It certainly isn't because our streets are paved in gold, because they're not. And it's not because there's a Cadillac or a Lincoln in every driveway or mansions on every corner. Those things are nice. You don't measure the greatness of a region by those things. They're nice. The way you measure the greatness of a region is by the quality of the people who live here and their willingness to be empathetic and altruistic. And what we're blessed with in this region is an incredible amount of empathy and altruism. And people genuinely care about their neighbors and about the well-being of the region. So we see people stepping up time and time again, whether it's foster care, whether it's fundraising, whether it's volunteering. We're always impressed and inspired by the level of empathy and compassion and altruism that people in the Adirondack region display on a daily basis. And our United Way is a vehicle for that energy, and it's just a great privilege and a great honor to be part of that. And that's what keeps me inspired every day.
That's incredible. Yeah. I've personally experienced everything you just spoke about. I mean, from the altruism to the philanthropy to, it's just like, it's so interesting seeing different business communities just from a business support of the community perspective. This community is so philanthropic. It's unreal. You go to others and that stuff exists, but it's like we're at that perfect size where we're big enough that you don't know everybody, but the connections are just powerful enough where everybody wants to help each other. And I think that's the sweet juice, that's the sweet stuff about this area for sure.
Absolutely. That's what makes the Adirondack region, I think, so special. It's the quality of the people. And what a great privilege that is. Not every region enjoys that asset the way we do.
I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but I'm curious if there's any sort of metric or measure that you can tell from your experience here in the United Way of like progress towards maybe there is no end solution where all these problems go away, but in terms of like progress made or expected, maybe a finish line of like we've actually hit a goal of a certain number of children in foster care or certain number of families on ALICE or in the ALICE category. Any kind of metric you can share there, or?
Well, there's numerous examples of metrics that have been accomplished and numbers that have been hit and goals that have been met, whether it's fundraising or something of that nature. But I think that what's more important and what sticks out in my mind in terms of a measurement is our ability in this region to come together and form partnerships and collaborations to address issues that are important to people. And there's just so numerous examples of that. And I think that's the measurement. You look at what Spark is doing, Substance Abuse Prevention and Recovery Coalition of Clinton County. You see that what that group has done in terms of addressing the heroin and opioid epidemic. And, you know, the list of accomplishments is many, from community events, numerous community events, to bringing programs to the Clinton County Jail for treatment as another example, and having a Live Well, Be Well event just this past weekend at Macomb Park, attended by over 400 people from throughout the region.
That's great.
To celebrate sobriety and to reduce stigma so that people who do need help are comfortable asking for it instead of feeling stigmatized or embarrassed about it. You know, examples like that. And that's just one example. ECHO in Essex County, they're doing similar things in the Franklin County Task Force. So you think of examples like that, and there are numerous opportunities in this region to highlight those kinds of collaborations and partnerships. And so I measure it that way.
Yeah.
I measure our greatness by our ability to come together to address problems that are facing our region. And that's the metric, I think, that you can't always put a tangible number on, but you can experience it and observe it. And sometimes the intangible metrics, the intangible measurements are the ones that really make a difference.
Qualitative versus quantitative.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I totally feel you there. You must have so many stories, life-changing stories, if you've helped people. And is there any one particular story, without outing the person or sharing too much detail, but is there any particular stories that just resonate with you, or that you'll never forget because of what the impact it had on your life of being part of that person's journey or that experience?
I've been blessed with so many of those because of my work, and again, that's part of the reason it's so rewarding and so enjoyable, because every day there's examples of people being supported by this region, and I like to think of it as a hand up instead of a handout, and giving people that support that they need to be able to stand on their own feet again and to overcome some challenge or obstacles. So there's numerous examples of that. Recently there was a little old lady from Essex County who was facing a life-changing dilemma, and it was around a prescription cost. She was needing medication, important medication, and she found that the prescription that needed to be filled was going to be right around $750.
Unreal.
In order for her to get this medication. And she was facing a dilemma because she was going to need to use potentially her rent money or her food money or other vital funds for everyday life to get the medication, or go without the medication because she didn't have the money because it was needed for food and housing and other things. Well, luckily she got in touch with the Essex County Office for the Aging and asked them if they could help her in some way, and they did help her, and they also contacted us and to see if we could intervene. We were able to, long story short, we were able to link this woman up with our prescription discount program, which we coordinate, and she used the program to leverage a discount for herself. And the prescription went from $750 to about $75. And that's an extreme case, but it does happen. And so now she was having to make a decision that wasn't life-changing, and she could find a way to make all of these pieces work together. So the $750 became $75, and she didn't have to use any rent money or food money to get her medication.
That's awesome.
I love that one. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
it's a tangible.
It's real life. Resonates
One.
with a lot of
Yep.
people, I'm sure, too.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, this is the problem with talking with you, John. I think I could spend an entire day just sitting here talking to you, but we don't have that much time. So what I'm going to do real quick then, because we're running low on time, is pivot a bit to my ever famous or self-proclaimed famous rapid fire section of the podcast. This is just a fun way for you to share a little bit more about you personally with all the listeners. So, are you ready, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Question number 1. What's a book that you would gift to a colleague, and why would you gift it?
You know what? A short story comes to mind instead of a book. It's called The Road to Tinkham. And it's written by Corey Ford, who was an interesting guy. He was a professor at Dartmouth and an author. And that story, you got to read it sometime.
What's it called again?
The Road to Tinkham. And it's an amazing short story, and it's incredibly moving. And you'll be sobbing by the time you get done reading it. But it's really inspirational, and I'd love everybody I know to read that story because it's quite a story. So check that one out.
All right. I love it. Number 2, what is the greatest investment that you have ever made, whether it be time, money, effort? What's the greatest investment you've ever made?
The greatest investment I ever made is as a parent. And parenting is no easy task. It's the hardest job anyone will ever have. But I'm very proud that my wife and I have put family values first, and we've invested a tremendous amount of time and energy into that. And we see our children now, 3 boys, 2 of them are in their 20s, and one of them is a senior in high school, really understanding the importance of family values and the importance of family and faith. We invested a lot of time and effort into that our whole life. So clearly that's my most proud investment, is the time I put into my family and the love and value I put on the importance of that. So there's nothing more important in terms of what I've ever invested in.
No. That's awesome. Awesome answer. Number 3. John, you get one more meal. That's it. Sorry, it's a little morbid, but hey, what would your last meal be? Your absolute favorite meal? What is it?
Well, in our family, Sundays are a big day. That's our Italian meal day. I usually cook certain things, and my wife cooks certain things, and we have this tradition of eating macaroni and meatballs and
Love it.
greens and other Italian bread, homemade, and a number of things. So it's a big deal in my house to have Sunday dinner with the family. And so if I had to have one last meal, clearly that would be the one that I would choose.
Love it.
With my family around the table.
Love it. Love it. Number 4, you've been given the gift of being able to put up a billboard anywhere you want. You just got to pick what you want to put on it. If you could put anything on a billboard out there in the world, what would you put on that billboard?
I would put a very simple statement on that billboard that I think we can all live by, and I would suggest that everybody in the whole world give this some thought. And I would put up there a simple saying that says, all you can take with you is that which you have given away. All that you can take with you is that which you have given away. And that's what I would put up there for the world to see.
It's It's a good statement. I've heard you say that a few times before. It's very reflective, and it almost makes you wonder if everybody thought that way, we'd probably have way less problems, right?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, number 5. Here's a good one. If you could go back in time and give your 18-year-old self some advice, what advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
I would advise myself to look beyond myself. I think young people and older people too, for that matter, sometimes we look through this self-imposed and selfish lens. We view the world that way. And I think if I could go back and advise myself, it would be to think of other people and see the world through their lens when appropriate, and not to be so self-centered. It took me a while to learn that skill and to understand what other people are facing and not be so self-absorbed. But that's hard for a young person to understand. Sometimes it comes with experience and with age, and you become more aware of the world around you and less self-absorbed. So when I look back, there's probably a few things that I would have done differently had I understood the importance of putting other people before myself.
Amen. Question number 6, my favorite question. So, I just got the look. Anybody who knows John, they got that famous look. Question number 6. If we could assemble a personal board of directors for you, John Bernardi, to guide and mentor you through the rest of your life, they can be alive, deceased, famous, or not, but you get to pick the 3 people to be on your personal board of directors. Who would they be and why?
Well, that's a tough one because so many people have touched my life in so many meaningful ways, but one's obvious to me, and I don't even have to think about it, and that would be my father, who died when I was young. I was 13. He was 47. And he was quite a guy, and I'd like to think that I'm like him in some ways, but I would give anything for 15 minutes with him to get his advice and to share my thoughts with him and to hear his thoughts. So he'd be the chairman of the board.
Yeah, there you go.
If he were here, and he is. He's with me every day, and I think I carry him with me, and I would like to think I'm a lot like him. The other 2 would be very hard to assemble because there's been so many people in my life that could sit on that board, and I think about so many teachers and professors and friends and family members that have influenced me. What's important there, I think, for all of us is to reflect on these mentors that we've had over the years and the people that have shaped our lives. And sometimes we don't necessarily realize it. It's not obvious. And then all of a sudden you think about, wow, that person was a huge influence on me. And the thing that's important there is oftentimes we forget what people said, and we forget what they did, and we forget what they looked like and what they were wearing. Those things are easily forgettable, but you never forget the way someone makes you feel. You never forget it. So those people that have made you feel good or made you feel inspired are the ones you remember. And that's the thing you never forget. So not only is that important for you when you think about who these people are that you'd like to have around this board table, but it's also important to think about how you impact other people and how you make them feel. Because they're not going to remember what you wore last week. They're not going to remember what kind of car you drove or what you said, but they're going to remember how you made them feel. There's no doubt about it. And so I would surround myself with those people who understood how important it was to make other people feel good about themselves and good about their place in this world.
Yeah. I mean, that's excellent. I mean, you also, I have to say, have one of the largest board rooms here at the United Way in our area. So
We do.
I suppose you could probably fit them all at that table, and I'll give you a few extra slots.
I could fill it up for sure.
The other thing that popped into my head as you were saying that was one of the very first people I had on this podcast, he was number 2, was Steve Fredrick. And he told a story about a teacher who basically, like, he told him he wasn't going to be successful, laughed at him kind of, and realized years later after he was successful that it's because that teacher, like, strategically changed his mindset, that it made him feel different about his own personal success, that changed his life. So it's interesting how we all have people like that. We don't realize at the time, but yep.
Absolutely. It's and you know, that's the real meaning of life. And again, and I know I keep repeating these values, but they're so important to me. That you measure the wealth of your life not by the size of your bank account or the car you drive or the house you live in. Those things are nice. But what matters in the end is the relationships that you've experienced throughout your life. Those are the things that are most important. And we have to remember that, because you can't let an opportunity go by because you may never get it back. And when you're lying on that deathbed and you're in the last few minutes of your life, those things that are going to be most important to you are the relationship you've had and the experiences you've had with people. And those are what's going to matter to you in the end. And if we can remember that while we're living, we're going to be way better off.
There's a guy, we should almost just end it on that, but I feel like I want to just share with you, and I may cut this out, but there's a guy, Gary Vaynerchuk, who says there's too many people in this world who are living their life as if to someday cross this finish line that they're aspiring to. And he's like, you're doing it wrong, because if all you're worried about is this someday, like, life that you're hoping to achieve or finish line, he's like, you're doing it wrong. You got to find within whatever means you have the way so you enjoy the process. You enjoy the people you're around. You enjoy the day-to-day process.
There's no doubt. And I'm blessed because I do have the ability to enjoy every day and to appreciate the life I have. I know people who are chasing something. They've been chasing it forever. They never find it. They never will find it. And they're malcontents on some level because they're not able to appreciate the moment or the life they have. They're always thinking about this imaginary finish line that they're going to cross someday. And what you find in life is there's no finish line. There's no real finish line. There's not even an imaginary finish line. Life is about what's happening right then and there in your everyday life, and having the ability to make the most of it, appreciate it, and most importantly, love the people around you and love your family and your friends and people in your community, and to appreciate the value that brings to all of us. And that really is what life's about.
Well, John, this has been phenomenal. Like I said, I wish we could talk for 8 more hours, but we will, but just not on the podcast. Last sending message, I'd like to give everybody who's listening an opportunity to find out the best way to get involved with the United Way. Anything you'd like to plug, contact information, maybe the 211, kind of a sending message for the United Way as an organization.
Absolutely. At our organization, United Way of the Adirondack Region, we consider ourselves an important and accessible resource to people in our region. We want people to call us. We want people to call upon us. There's numerous opportunities to get involved, whether it be volunteering or raising money or getting involved in initiatives that are important to us. So you can call our office at 518-563-0028, and any number of people here on our great team will be happy to help you. You can visit our website at unitedwayadk.org or stop in to our office at 45 Tom Miller Road in Plattsburgh. We're in the people business, and we're always looking for the opportunity to do business with people.
Fantastic. Thanks, John. This has been awesome.
It's been my pleasure, Ryan. Thank you.
And so this is another episode of Stories of Gumption. Thank you for tuning in. Interested in sponsoring this podcast, just shoot us a note at storiesofgumptionpodcast@gmail.com. Another episode coming right at you. Thank you so much. Take care.